Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I'm here to help you finish your Christmas shopping list and let everyone else over there stiff-arm their competition while trying to fight off that tryptophan on Turkey Night. Now, what we did was we partnered with Rochester Sports Autographs, the largest JSA authenticated autograph distributor in the United States, where you can get up to 75% off over 30,000 autographed sports collectibles during this holiday season. They have something for everyone. But how is RSA able to offer such great deals on JSA authentication, you ask? Well, they do this by making deals directly with athletes so there are no extra markups, and they choose to then pass that savings on to you, the customer. Now, all orders from Rochester Sports Autographs are top quality and shipped to your door with top authentication and a money-back guarantee. But hurry up because customers are so stark raving mad for RSA that memorabilia sells out daily. All you have to do is head over to shoprsa.com/SHN. Again, that's shoprsa.com/SHN. So don't wait to bring home your favorites and own a piece of sports history for you and the loved ones on your shopping list this holiday season. This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
The Rose Bowl. The game that inspired the college football bowl season has a long and storied history. The stadium itself is 100 years old, and in celebration of it, Pigskin Dispatch is assembling some of the top historians and authors to share the memories, people, and events that make the granddaddy of them all the special game that it is. Enjoy this Rose Bowl memory from pigskindispatch.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And welcome to Rose Bowl month. We are celebrating 100 years of the Rose Bowl all month long, and we have some great historians and authors and guests bringing us some of the greatest aspects of Rose Bowl history, because that stadium is 100 years old this year on January 1st or 2nd, whenever the game is played. And we can't wait for that. So today we have our friend Matthew DiBiase joining us to talk about another great Rose Bowl. Matthew, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Thanks, Darren. It's always an honor and a privilege to be on your show.
Privilege is all ours because you have some great stories and a great presentation. And we just love the high energy that you bring. It really makes it interesting.
Yes.
So Matthew, what do you want to talk about today in Rose Bowl history?
Let's talk about the 1925 Rose Bowl, which is one of the most famous Rose Bowl games, and in the history of that specific contest. There, it was the first. It featured the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, coached by Knute Rockne, versus Stanford University, coached by Glenn Pop Warner. Two incredible, immortal college football legends there. And for Knute Rockne, it was his very first college bowl game. I mean, for Notre Dame as a school, and for Rockne himself, it was his first bowl game as a coach. And interestingly, it would be the last time Notre Dame would play a bowl game. It wouldn't be till the 1969 season, literally the 1970 Rose Bowl, 45 years later, that they would play another bowl game here. So it was a moment in time for Notre Dame University, a moment for them to grow as a football program and as not just a regional power, but as a national power. I mean, this game, you could say, helped elevate Notre Dame as a national school, a national college football power here, and it really elevated Knute Rockne's stature too as a coach. And another aspect of this game is that it was the last game that the Four Horsemen of Notre Dame ever played together as a unit. Jim Crowley, Elmer Layden, Don Miller, and Harry Stuhldreher. The Four Horsemen of Notre Dame, who ran roughshod over all opponents during that immortal 1924 season, creating, to this day, one of the greatest college football folklore legends of all time. I mean, one of the greatest backfields in Notre Dame Fighting Irish history. This was their last game, the last hurrah for the Four Horsemen, because after that, I don't think any one of them went to the NFL. They just went their separate ways. I think they all went to coaching there. Crowley coached at Fordham, and it was at Michigan State.
I think they ended up having some spot duties of playing some games. I think like the Providence Steamroller, I believe one game, I think it was Providence, had 3 of the Four Horsemen playing one game, but it wasn't like a whole season for any of them, I don't believe.
Yeah, I won't dispute that. I've never studied it myself, but I won't dispute it. I mean, if that is, it is, but literally as a college football unit, this was their last hurrah. And for Stanford, this was Stanford's first Rose Bowl game appearance since they appeared in the very first Rose Bowl game in 1902, where they were annihilated by fielding Hurry Up Yost's point-a-minute teams, 49-0. This was their first Rose Bowl appearance. It was Pop Warner's first bowl game appearance as a coach. And also this Stanford team featured the immortal Ernie Nevers, one of the greatest football players in Stanford University history. Nevers was just a fireball. I think he was a junior, because I think the following season, 25, that was his senior year as a player. He was a junior. And Pop Warner, this is incredible when you think about it. He was asked to compare Ernie Nevers with Jim Thorpe, and Warner surprised people by saying he thought Nevers was the better player. Now, this is how he based it on. Now, I would dispute that, because Thorpe was such an fantastic all-around athlete. I mean, not just in football, but in baseball, track and field, and other sports and all of that, in terms of athleticism. But the way Pop Warner explained it was that he thought Nevers was better because Thorpe, although enormously talented, if you pull off a big run, he would get satisfied with himself and maybe not try as hard on the next play or something like that. Whereas Nevers was absolutely full tilt all times. Even if he was losing 55-0, he went absolute full tilt. There was no stopping it. And Pop Warner really admired that in Nevers. I mean, he just enjoyed playing. He would give everything he had. He held nothing back. And that's why he always thought of Nevers as his favorite player. And Nevers was like that. Yeah, he was absolutely unrelenting. He would just, no matter how insignificant the game was or how far behind he was, he gave everything he had. And he was literally the reason why Stanford went into the Rose Bowl. Stanford literally broke the University of California's domination of the Pacific Coast Conference, because I told you, as I told you before, California won 4 consecutive titles. In 1924, Stanford broke their lock, and they won the Pacific Coast Conference, and that's why they went into the Rose Bowl game instead of California. If they had lost to California, then it would have been Knute Rockne taking on Andy Smith's Wonder Teams, which is a nice little what-if scenario, because those are, it would have been interesting. The Four Horsemen versus the Wonder Team, very interesting what-if, but no, it was Stanford.
Yeah, they could have, modern media really could have had a great play up on that game, couldn't they? But this is a great matchup, too. You have 2 premier backfields, the Four Horsemen, Ernie Nevers on the other side, 2 great coaches. I mean, wow, that builds up for a great contest itself.
But here was a little understory that no one really realized about Ernie Nevers going into the game. He was not at 100%. With his last game, he badly injured his ankle. I don't know if it was a fracture or a very, very bad sprain. But they had to put a cast on his ankle there, and he was laid up. There was a time lag between the last game in November and then New Year's Day, and merely days before the New Year's Day, the game, they removed the cast from his ankle, and they asked him how he felt. And Nevers later admitted, he said he still felt pain, but he said there was no way he was not going to be playing that game. Even if he was on one leg, he was going to play that game. So I feel great, but he was still in pain, but he did not let that stop him. And in that game, he actually personally outgained the Four Horsemen on the ground. I think it was over 100 yards rush. I don't have the precise figure. I think over 110, something like that. He gained more yardage than any one of the members of the Four Horsemen there. And it was absolutely courageous what he did. I mean, even Rockne admired his effort there. But in the end, Stanford just was no match because it was Ernie Nevers versus the whole Notre Dame team. And Notre Dame had the depth. It wasn't just the Four Horsemen. You had what they called the Seven Mules. They had one of the reasons why the Four Horsemen ran wild on the field is because they had a great offensive line in the Seven Mules who just kept opening up holes and opening up holes. And also Notre Dame had its famous backfield ship formation that no one really could stop. I mean, it was so innovative. I mean, they would set up in a single wing formation. Imagine a shotgun formation where you're basically predominantly running. It's a running offense. For those of you who don't know what a single wing formation was, they would, the four men would be in the backfield. They would be in one position. Then I think it was Miller who called out the signals. He would just say, call out a number, and then shift 2-3 hike, and then at the last second they would shift, and then the snap would come, and they would just catch the defenses flat-footed there. And another innovation with Notre Dame is that when they did their blocking, they wouldn't just do blocking at the line of scrimmage. They would go down the field and continue blocking. That was the great innovation behind Notre Dame, because before Rockne came along with that shift, no one ever thought about you. They just thought of you just do your blocking right at the line of scrimmage. No one thought about telling your offensive lineman, okay, after you break through at the line of scrimmage, keep going, keep running, and keep throwing blocks. And that's why Notre Dame had a devastating offense throughout all of Rockne's coaching career, his 12 seasons there, because it wasn't just backfield speed. He wanted offensive linemen he wanted his offensive linemen to have great speed as well, because they needed to go down the field fast to keep throwing blocks for their backs there. And that's why Notre Dame's ground game was so devastating, because that great speed, once they had got that momentum, once they broke through at the line of scrimmage, they would just get these incredible long gainers and just tear up through the backfields of opposing defenses there. And that's why Rockne's record was so stupendous. He won all those national championships there. With Gipp, George Gipp. Before the Four Horsemen, there was George Gipp. And then you had the Four Horsemen. And then in 29 and 1930, he also had another great backfield of Joe Savoldi, Marty Schwartz, Marty Brill, and Frank Caradeo there, that won national championships in 29 and 30 there. And great speed, great innovation.
He had a really kind of interesting innovation that 1924 season with the Four Horsemen, where I know a few games, I'm not sure he did it every game, where he would start the substitutes and sort of wear down the opposition, and then all of a sudden bring in the stars. The Four Horsemen would come in, and this, I think some of the Seven Mules would come in at that time, and they would just, this tired, worn out team, when you talk about their depth, and then just, run right over them. So it's kind of an interesting innovation as well.
Actually, it wasn't some of the time. Rockne did that all the time. He called them his shock troops. Such was Notre Dame's depth as a team. His second and third line units were almost as good as the starters. So he would start his second line units, and they would, take on the opponents, basically just testing and probing. They were testing plays. Okay, this running play works good. This running play doesn't really work good against their defenses. This pass play seems to work pretty good here. They're susceptible to this type of reverse here, whereas this other type of play, it's not really working. So about maybe midway through the first quarter or very late in the first quarter, the shock troops would come off and they would tell Rockne, okay, this seems to work here. The opponents are using this type of defense here, this type of coverage here. When you send in the first line units of Four Horsemen, use this type of plays here and use these type of formations. And then they would go in and then they would just cut their opponents a new one there, just because they knew what would work and what didn't work, and they were fresh. Whereas the other teams were not as fresh. They didn't have, because they didn't have the depth and all that. So that was not a rare Rockne thing. That was a constant Rockne thing, using called him his shock troops. And in fact, in the NFL, Vince Lombardi, when he was coaching with the New York Giants in the 1956 season, he used a similar type of trick because he had Don Henrik as the backup cornerback to Charlie Connerly. And what the Giants would used to do was let Henrik start the game. And Henrik, he was a good backup quarterback, but he was like a coach on the field. He could decipher defenses and coverages very quickly. And he would look at the opponents there for like the first part of the first quarter there. And he would test out plays, test out passes and running formations. And finally, he would go back to Lombardi and say, okay, they're using this type of defense here. These plays will work here. This type of passes will work here. And then Charlie Connerly would go in and he knew exactly what would work. And lo and behold, yeah, that's why the Giants won the 1956 NFL championship. And remember, Vince Lombardi learned his football under Jim Crowley at Fordham and Frank Leahy, who both learned it from Knute Rockne there. And again, the elements of the Green Bay power sweep were taken from Knute Rockne's quick openers there and his Notre Dame backfield shifting and all that. He took it all from Rockne. So there's like a lineage there, a passing along of knowledge and brilliance there. I mean, the Knute Rockne coaching tree is still one of the greatest coaching trees in all of college football history. So many of his men became coaches in their own right, and then they taught their coach, and then it is passed along. You could trace it all the way down to the present day. Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Bryant. Yeah. I mean, Dabo Swinney, you can trace Dabo Swinney all the way to the Knute Rockne coaching tree because he learned it under George Stallings, who learned it from Bear Bryant, who learned it from Frank Thomas, who learned it from Knute Rockne. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
So going back to the game, so we have this great matchup of coaching and backfields and strategies and innovation. What happened in this contest when these two behemoths met at the Rose Bowl?
Even though Stanford outgained Notre Dame in offensive yardage, they literally beat themselves. They gave up 8 turnovers and 3 of Notre Dame's touchdowns, because Notre Dame won the game 27-10. All 3 of Notre Dame's touchdowns came as a result of Stanford turnovers there. I mean, let's see. I'm just checking the results here. Let's see. Elmer Leonard scored 3 touchdowns. He one on a 78-yard pick six in the second quarter there. And in the fourth quarter, a 70-yard pick six. And then also on a fumble recovery, deep in Stanford territory, he scored on a 3-yard touchdown plunge there. But three of those turnovers lead to Notre Dame scores there. Take away those errors. Guess what? It's an actually much closer game, just a 10-3 win. But hey, Stanford shot itself in the foot. You give up 8 turnovers, you're not going to win that game, my friend. I mean, I know after the game, Pop Warner complained they should award points for the fact that we outgained him, and Knute Rockne was not sympathetic. He said, "Oh, why not in baseball count foul balls as hits and I give them runs every time you hit a foul ball or something like that? Oh, give me a break and all of that." But in terms of the score, no, it wasn't close. I mean, Notre Dame just dominated, and basically it was because of their superior defense. But there was one chance. Stanford had a chance to make it closer. Stanford had the ball on the Notre Dame 1-yard line. 4 times Ernie Nevers tried to break the score, and all 4 times the Notre Dame's defense held. But such was the battering Nevers gave the Notre Dame line, Rockne had to do multiple substitutions. He had to take out 3 of his defensive linemen because that's how hard Ernie Nevers charged. But what a goal line stand! They stopped him. He couldn't break off, and he got stymied there. And in fact, Nevers didn't even score a touchdown in that game. It was Stanford's sole touchdown was a 7-yard touchdown pass from Walker to Shipke there. So he didn't score a touchdown at all, sadly, for Ernie Nevers there. So Notre Dame won 27-10. And an interesting thing happened. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Notre Dame would not compete in a bowl game for another 45 years. Now, why is that? Notre Dame's powers that be they didn't really want Notre Dame to become a football factory. This was still a religious school, okay? And they kind of prevailed upon Rockne. I don't think we ought to do this again. And Rockne wasn't against playing in bowl games, but this was one time Notre Dame's administration prevailed against Rockne. They basically told him, I don't think we ought to do this again. And also part of Notre Dame's curriculum was during when the bowl games were being played, the students were back in school there. And that kind of interfered with it as well. So that's why you had this 45-year gap. And in fact, it wasn't until finally late 60s under Reverend Theodore Hesburgh altered the curriculum. Finally, that could allow the students to travel to play in bowl games. And also, they needed the money from bowl games to enhance recruiting, especially among African Americans, because even in the 60s, there weren't that many African Americans who were playing football at Notre Dame there. And they needed to increase minority student membership and also minority membership at the football team there, expanding that as well. So you needed that flexibility. In other words, you need to start playing in bowl games to get that extra money to help, to expand the school there, to alter the curriculum and get better players there and aid in minority recruiting there at Notre Dame. And that's why starting in the 1969 season and the 1970 Cotton Bowl game, that's when they went back, and to this day now they always play in bowl games there. But that was the lead drivers and why Notre Dame returned to college bowl game activity. And also, I think in the late 60s, was it 67? I think 67. Yeah, 67. Yeah. The AP polls decided to make a change before they would announce the national champion before the bowl games were played. But I think starting in 67, now they would wait after the bowl games were played to announce a national champion. So for Notre Dame, if you want to win a national championship, that means you got to compete in bowl game competition and you got to win those bowl games to get consideration in the AP poll. So that too was another key driver in Notre Dame re-entering college bowl game competition.
Yeah, some pretty good reasons to, that's for sure. I didn't realize that there was that long of a drought that they weren't in. That's amazing.
Yeah, not so much a drought, just a deliberate decision by the university not to engage there. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's some great research and great information there, Matthew. Really appreciate that. Why don't you share with us, one more time where your people can get a hold of your great books on, not only football history, but you got, some other sports in there with some hockey and things in there. If you could just share maybe the titles of your books and where people can get them at.
All of my books, all 4 of my books are up at Amazon. Bench Bosses, the NHL's coaching elite, is up at Amazon. The Art of the Dealers, the NHL's greatest general managers, is up at Amazon. And of course, my 2 football books, Lords of the Gridiron, College Football's Greatest Coaches, and Lords of the Gridiron 2, Roman numeral 2, Pro Football's Greatest Coaches, are up at Amazon. And my last 3 books, the only way you can buy them is at Amazon. They're not available in stores. So you have to order it online. All of my last 2 books are on sale at 30% off, especially my Pro Football book. It's on sale at 30% off and will remain on sale until after Super Bowl 57 is played. And my college football book, Lords of the Gridiron, College Football's Greatest Coaches, it too is on sale at 30% off and will remain on sale until after the national championship game is played in mid-January.
All right. Matthew DiBiase, thank you very much for sharing this great football history once again. And we look forward to, we know you got you signed up for a couple more great Rose Bowl things to help us celebrate in this Rose Bowl month. But thank you for telling about this great game back in that 1924 season.
Thank you, Darren. It's always a great privilege. And it's always a pleasure being interviewed by you.
We're taking a peek over at the chains and the down marker. It's 4th and long. We're going to have to punt the ball and get on out of here, but we'll have another series tomorrow for your football history headlines, so be sure to tune in. We invite you to check out our website, pigskinddispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskinddispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast. PigskinDispatch.com is a proud affiliate of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of sports yesteryear.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Ernie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.